Ms. Ralph White, and I am an alcoholic.
And good evening, everyone. I'm Steve Lee. I'm an alcoholic. And boy, quickly, I've got to get this off speaker view. That's unnerving. There you go. I'm tired of listening to me. I promise you it would be double if I was having to look at me while I did it. So anyway, Ralph and I are thrilled to be back with you guys again. This has just been such fun. And you know what's really cool, or one of the many cool benefits of this, is so many people that I didn't know when we began this have become familiar faces each week. And obviously there are 200 of us on here so right now, and I don't get to see everybody, but there's just been some recurring folks, and that's just a warm feeling, and I appreciate it. And every week there's been a few more people that are local here in Nashville that have joined us, and I see a couple more tonight that I hadn't seen before. My friend Hal and Danny joining Kenny. And so anyway, that's just cool, and I'm thrilled to be here. My intention is to try to only go for about 12 or 15 minutes here and give it back to Ralph and bounce it back a little more. But you guys have seen that Ralph and I talk a lot like we drink, that once I start, the phenomenon of craving sits in, and I am unpredictable, and I don't know how much I'll take. But so just like I sat at the bar, I begin with the intention of just having a couple here right now, and we'll see what happens. But you know, we've gone through this process the last few weeks, right? I mean, we've all been on this ride, and theoretically, at least, have been taking these steps. And last week got engaged in that ninth step. We began making those amends. We even moved through the eighth step and the preparation and the willingness and understanding the nature of the wrongs, and arrived willing to go stand in front of people and make that direct amends where possible. And we talked about through the Q&A a lot of things, cases where perhaps to do so would harm them or others, cases where perhaps direct amends can never be made because someone is passed or someone is unavailable to us. But if we have done that, if I have as wholeheartedly as I am capable in the moment done those things, it says that this thought brings us to step 10. What's the thought that brings me to step 10? I always look back at the preceding paragraph, and the preceding paragraph is talking about those promises, and it says, are they extravagant? And it says they're being fulfilled among us, right? If we're willing to work for them. This thought brings us to step 10. So the thought that brings me to step 10 is I need to continue. Step 10 is the continue step. There's nothing new happening in the 10th step. There's not new information. There's perhaps a deeper understanding. But step 10 is telling me to continue. It uses the word continue 4 times in the first 2 paragraphs. So I'm going to continue to take personal inventory. I'm going to continue to set right any new mistakes as I make them. And when should I begin this? When does the 10th step really start? This is one of those places where I have to stop and tell you that I'm offering a point of view, and that is hidden. It's camouflaged, an opinion that's camouflaged as a point of view. But here's my opinion. My opinion is that the book says that we commence to set right any new mistakes as we go along. We vigorously commence this way of life as we cleaned up the past. So that implies to me that, frankly, I begin the 10th step, the 9th step, the 10th step, and the 11th step really simultaneously. There's not real divisions between those. Now, as we're going through them with someone we sponsor for the first time, naturally we're kind of going and folding one into the other because there's a lot to take. But it also, that lends itself to the idea that I probably shouldn't be taking a tremendous amount of time moving from one of these to the other. Because see, I got to start this 10th step when it says that I begin to set right any new mistakes as I go along, as I commence to clean up the past. I can create a new mistake on my way to make my first amends. And I don't get to say, well, wait, I'll come back in 8 or 9 months and clean that up. Now I want to begin to clean things up. When I am walking around and drop something out of my pocket, I pick it up right then. If I inadvertently litter, I don't leave and drive off and say, I'll come back in 3 weeks and pick that up. I want to clean up any new mistakes as I go along. But man, there's so much in here, right? We land here in many ways in a recovered state. And I'm going to cover about this page and a half right here and then hand it off to Ralph, who will undoubtedly cover some of the same ground because it's critical information. And then when I come back later, there's a few other things I want to talk about more experientially and what I view as sort of the spiritual roots of this 10th step and where I believe I have landed. But it suggests that that when I'm at this 10th step that I continue to watch for selfishness, right? I continue to watch for dishonesty, resentment, and fear. And so I just want to say, when these crop up, I ask God at once to remove them. So I'm continuing, as we have every step of the way, I am continuing to ask God for power I don't have to do something I can't do. I am continuing to invite this higher power, however I relate to it, into all of my life and say, oh, I spotted this. And you spot it sometimes, don't you, during the day? Our book talks about that all these inventories are alike in principle. The 12 and 12 does. But it talks about the spot check inventory. When I'm going through the day and I just get off of a phone call and I've just been a jerk to somebody. And I promise you, I didn't do it today, but I did it yesterday. I was a jerk on the phone yesterday to somebody that works with me. I was going to say that works for me because that's how I talk to him, but he works with me. And sometimes I get confused about who's in charge, both literally and figuratively. And we learned all the way back at the 3rd step that when I'm living a life run on self-will, I'm going to be in collision with the world and its people. We talked about when we began going into that 4th step that we were going to look for these manifestations of self and see how they showed up in my daily living. And we did that extensively. We did that from the present all the way back in that 4th step inventory. And the 10th step just has me keeping up with that on a day-to-day basis in a real time. I get an opportunity in real time to go, oh, that just showed up. Sometimes I get to make a phone call and clean it up or walk to the next office or walk in the other room and do it with my wife. I'll tell you the thing that is disheartening around my house. You guys have been with us know that my wife is also 31 years active member in Alcoholics Anonymous. And we'll have a little tiff or something. It happens every now and then. And we'll go to our corners. And she'll come later. She will come and she will do her 10th step. She will promptly admit her 10th step. And even that pisses me off. Because I go, damn it, I wanted to go first. I wasn't ready yet, but I wanted to be first because I want the spiritual high ground in this relationship. But the truth is, my wife's got the spiritual high ground and has had it for a long, long time. But it's amazing how, so I'll be in there sucking my thumb and she'll come in and we'll be standing in front of whatever little thing we had and owning where she feels perhaps she was wrong. And so even then, it can be uncomfortable. But see, because if I arrive here with all that going on, now what? Because we got another one of these now what type questions in AA. I'm cleaning up the past and I'm continuing to look for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. And now what? It says, now my next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. That's what we've been prepping ourselves for. What we read just a few pages before that as we begin this amends process, and that in the moment we're trying to get our lives in order, but our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and those about us. And here we are. It says, my next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. And it says, our code is love and tolerance of others. And I will tell you what dawned on me not too long ago. A lot of you have already been clear on this for a long time. But apparently, that understanding and effectiveness and that love and tolerance of others are inextricably connected. Because I cannot be very understanding and effective if I'm not loving and tolerant. That those are in conflict with one another. If I'm unable to embrace one, I'm not going to be very effective with the other. And this love and tolerance of others being our code. You know, that tolerance has taken on a new meaning for me. And I know that most of you have had some level of this discussion. But what does tolerance look like on a guy like me? I thought when I arrived at the 10th step, when I first saw that love and tolerance of others, by the way, is now our code, that really what probably would have happened for me as a result of this tremendous spiritual growth that I had undergone during these first 9 steps is my ability to tolerate how screwed up you are will probably have grown dramatically. My pain tolerance will have increased. I will be able to listen to you prattle on about some crap I know you're completely wrong about, but I won't say anything. But I will be a harsh judge. And I probably will gossip to somebody else about how screwed up you are, but I won't let you know it. That's what tolerance looked like on me. I got pain tolerance. But boy, there's not much freedom in that kind of tolerance. The tolerance, my friend Jack, and Ralph is a sponsee brother of Jack's, and my friend Jack, his son's an engineer. And his son came to him one day and gave him an engineering definition of tolerance. And it says enough space between two objects, allowing them to act freely without friction. And I thought, how cool is that? I kind of like that. The space to act freely without friction. I'd been given here in Nashville by another gentleman years ago a little card that gave a description of tolerance that's a little different than I've always viewed it. And I'm going to paraphrase it and not quote the whole thing to you, but the line that I liked most is it described tolerance as a bigness and generosity of spirit, allowing others their particular point of view and peculiarities. How about that? Peculiarities. That's kind of, I like that word. You know, he's not an SOB, he's peculiar. I will now let you be peculiar rather than be any number of other words that I might have used in the past. And I will tell you that people have been telling me all my life that I was peculiar, so now I know what they meant. And but peculiar is kind of it's a less threatening word. It's not as abrasive and combative a term. It gives me more freedom to just label you peculiar and label me peculiar. So there's a tremendous amount of room there. I'm going to jump on it. It says here, by the way, that we will have entered the world of the Spirit. See, this is where now, we're current. We are current in our recovery, and we have entered the world of the Spirit. But let me be clear, in my case, I may have entered the world of the Spirit, but I'm just in the foyer, right? I'm not all the way in the house yet. I'm barely in the front door, and I want to explore. I want to go in. I want all the way in. But right now, man, I'm just getting my foot in the door in this world of the Spirit. But I've entered it, see? And it will say over on the next page that we have begun to develop this vital sixth sense. So see, now I'm living in the fourth dimension in the spiritual world, and I'm beginning to develop a vital sixth sense. That's that spiritual sense. It's not my five worldly senses. The sixth sense is that intuitive thought that we're about to build on in the 11th step. So this is a pretty cool place to get, right? But I'm in and out of this place all day long because because self shows up in a million different ways. But here's the cool thing for me too. I want to hit another part that I misunderstood for years. We cease fighting anything or anyone. That's a pretty cool deal. There's just nothing I tell in AA, there's nothing to fight about. There's just nothing to fight about because you're free to believe anything you believe, and I'm free to believe anything I believe. And there's a lot of room in there. That's pretty cool. It doesn't mean that some people don't have strong opinions and ideas and passions, but I'm just less invested than ever in trying to convince somebody else. I just don't spend any time trying to coerce anybody into anything. We just share about ourselves in AA. And that begins to work out in the rest of the world for me. But this is where it says, for those of us who came here to stop drinking, and remember, I know that we're all the way over here at the 10th step. I had a sponsee call me yesterday. It's guy's sober a few months, and he could not have been more confused. Or not confused, he actually was pushing back against something, but he had been in one of the meetings where several people were saying, boy, alcohol is not my problem. Well, I got here and I now know alcohol is not my problem. And he said, Steve, if I spend too much time telling myself alcohol is not my problem, I'm going to get drunk. And I said, well, look, I got no argument with that. I know what they mean. And our book tells us that liquor was but a symptom. We got to get down to causes and conditions, right? We know that. Our book tells us that my real problem centers in the mind. Our book tells us that selfishness and self-centeredness is the root of my problem. So I get all of that. What I told him, I said, alcohol might not be my problem, but when I drink alcohol, I'm a problem. You know, when I drink alcohol, there's nothing else that AA has for me that I can access when I'm drinking. And trust me, my life, I'm not one of those alcoholics. My life got better when I stopped drinking because not a thing happened to me because I was drunk. But if you've been resisting a drink for a long time, if you've been in AA and spend the time not drinking, and people say, when will I not want to drink? Well, I will tell you this implies, at least for a lot of us, at a minimum, when that goes away. Now, it can happen much sooner than this, but it says that by now, I'll be returned to sanity where alcohol is concerned. I'll react sanely and normally where alcohol is concerned. That strange mental blank spot is not there anymore. Where alcohol is concerned, I'm not strangely insane. I'm reacting sanely and normally. And it says, well, this is what bugged me. We will see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or action on our part. Are you kidding me? I've been working my ass off in AA. What do you mean no thought or effort on my part? I've been giving guys rides I don't like or know. I've been cleaning up after people making messes that I didn't make. I've been listening to a sponsor that really is clearly not that bright. I've been doing a ton of stuff that makes no sense just because you said do it. And then you would say, Steve, come over. We're going to do step work. And now you're telling me no thought or effort on my part? I've been working hard. And I have been. And I bet you have. But here's what I believe that means. This new attitude toward liquor is not what I've been working on. In AA, we're not working on a new attitude toward liquor. We're working on establishing a relationship with God. And that new attitude toward liquor is a side effect. It's the side effect of my establishing that relationship because we said all the way back at the second step that I must find a power greater than myself which will solve my problem. And that's what my thought and effort is in AA. And so I was just confused about what I was doing and how I was spending my time. Ralph, I'm going to throw it to you for a while, buddy.
Thank you, Stephen. My name is Ralph White. I'm an alcoholic. I had looked at that paragraph that you talked about too. Um, that attitude, my new attitude toward liquor has been given. It just comes. Sandy used to love to talk about in that paragraph, which are the 10-step promises. Um, for a long time, and everybody knows the 9-step promises. And for a long time, and many people will say, "Oh, those are my favorite promises." I heard Teresa share one time about the 10-step promises being her favorite promises. And I tend to look at the 10-step promises too, because they are so powerful when you look at them. Look at the adjectives. They're not work that we had to do. Our new attitude has been given us without thought or effort. It just comes. Wow. It says that's the miracle of it. We're not fighting it. We're not avoiding temptation. I'm in a position of neutrality. New attitude toward liquor. My old attitude, I'm from the 70s, and I'm not going to give the exact description that me and my boys had for ourselves. But my description of myself when I was a young man running and gunning was, I am a get high, fill in the blank. That's who I am. That's what I do. That's how I get out. That's how I identify myself. I was about 22 or 23 years old, and I remember saying it out loud. If I ever get to the point, you guys, when on Friday and Saturday, both nights, I'm not trying to be out in the street, shoot me. I'm done. What kind of life is that anyway? Just that. And the new attitude now, because I couldn't imagine my head not being back. I can't imagine my head being back. I can't imagine it. There's a part for anybody that's new on here. For years and years and years, I used to say, if I could get loaded with no consequences, if I could drink with no consequences, I'd be drinking. And that was real at the time. That was my attitude. That's where I was. I can't tell you the day or the time of the hour. I can't tell you the transition point. I can't tell you the bright line. I can't tell you when something happened to me, but I can tell you it had happened before I knew it had happened. One day I was sitting around thinking, damn, I don't want my head back. If I could get low right now, I don't even want to. I can't imagine being that way. And that had happened before I knew it had happened. It just comes. Really, really powerful. This 10 step continued to take personal inventory. And when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Why? It's where I live the rest of and this step, as Steve says, it says, this should continue for a lifetime. So I used to hear a lot of people when I was new saying, and I hear a speaker now say, I was listening to Bill Cleveland the other night, and he said, and I'm not getting into the percentages, but I will say what he said. When you do up to the first 9 steps, you've done 5% of the program. Now the 10, 11, and 12 is the 95%. And I'm like, oh, Bill, but I understood what he was talking about, because as Steve said, 10, 11, and 12 is the continuation of everything I've done. And it may be I might be 2, 3, 4 years in, and I've done all the way up through amends. I might have done most of my amends, but now here I am 34 years sober. So what have I been doing for the last 30 some odd years? And most of that time has been spent in this continue place, this continue. And that's what it looks like in real life. I like in the book, there are 5 components to the 10th step. And one of the things the first component is watch. So something happens as a result of me doing enough inventory, doing enough uncover, discover, discard, doing enough digesting chunks, doing enough, okay, guys, doing enough sitting in front of people. And now I turn on my watcher. That's the first part. Watch. What am I watching for? The same thing I looked at in the 4th step. Watch for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. We're doing that again? Yeah, we're doing that again. We're doing that again. In fact, dude, that is the fabric of your life. That's what we do. Remember what it is that you're embarking on? Freedom from bondage of self. Oh, that's right. Well, guess what? Guess what bondage of self looks like on you, Ralph White? Resentment, fear, dishonesty, and resentment, fear, dishonesty, and selfishness. That's what bondage of self looks like on a guy like you. It's some other stuff. Most of them stem from those, particularly fear. So yeah, dude, we're going to continue that. We're going to look at it in 4 and 5 because you've never looked at it before. Never. 34 years old, the first time you picked up pen to paper. 34 years of your existence. And you pick up pen to paper and you start looking at how those things have run your life. And so, okay. And you share them with somebody else. So now when you get through doing that, don't wipe your brow and say, whoo, last time I got to look at those again. No, because guess what? That's what drives you. That's what runs you. And now you're going to be fueled differently than you were in the 4th and 5th step. Now you are going to be, now you are connected to power. I like to call them power tools, 10, 11, and 12. A lot of the early stuff was manual labor, that writing and the rest. And you have to provide a lot of the energy. But now it's power tools. That's why when you do a 10th step, you can do it pretty quickly on the spot. 4 and 5, you sit down, you take pen and paper, you write, you take some time. But now, I'm looking at power tools. And so first I watch, what's the next component of a 10 step? The second component is the one that I skip the most, ask. So I watch for these and check this out. I don't kind of like the language. They say when these crop up. They don't say if, when. Yes, sir. We know you. It's happening. Yeah, you wrote, you did all that. You floating on cloud 9. You did these amends. You a bad man. You in the realm of the spirit. Check this out. You still Ralph White. You still human. You still make messes. You still fall down. You still bump heads. You still act like a kid. You still do the kind of things that you do. You are still selfish. You are still, you still do all of the things that you did before. Hopefully they lessen. But here's the big thing. Put your big boy pants on because now you own them. Now when you make messes, you clean them up on the spot. You don't wait a year. You don't wait 2 years. You don't wait 32 years. Now you make messes and you clean them up because life is about making messes, you guys. Being grown in life is all of us, even the best of us. I don't say because we alcoholics, we do it more than most. Maybe we put some extras on it. Maybe our penalty for what we do is more than most. We go back to drinking, which is deadly. But people do stuff. Um, and so it can get scary, this business of living, but we got a way to address this business of living from mess maker. And that's the human, that's people, so we watch. And then the next thing, when it happens, ask God, immediately. That's the part I don't do. Sometimes even when I'm watching, I'll skip the ask God and I might go to discuss, which is the third component to the 10th step. We watch, for those 4 things. Then we ask God and wants to remove them when they crop up. Yeah, when they crop up, because they gonna crop up. I usually don't go to that one, you guys, to be honest. That's not my go-to. I'm glad to be doing this because I get a reminder. Dude, don't skip that vital step. And then we discuss. I get it more from some people that I work with than I even do. In the business, Spons, I need to holler at you right now. You got a few minutes? Spons, and sometimes it'll be a partner. Sometimes I'll call a friend. I need you to sit down. We need to holler right now. Right on the spot. And that's this continuation. It's not new news, but it's brand new to be living this way of life, you guys. To man up in the moment, to show up in the moment, to be aware in the moment, to stop it from growing into something big if I catch it when it's little, And so that's the third component, watch, ask, discuss. Okay, spons. Then the next one, if it's called for, make amends. make amends at the time, promptly make amends. Promptly for me, sometimes it's 2 or 3 days, and the rest of the, and we're going to see why this bleeds into the 11th step. Steve and I are going to talk about the 11th next week, but we'll see how they bleed into. That's why I don't trip. Some people call what they do at night a 10th step. Other people call it 11th. I don't care what you call it. Do it. Do it. I spilled something. Oh shit, I'm making a nice, oh, is that a 10 step? Clean up. Clean it up. Call it what number you want to call it. Just do it. And so much of what we talk about next week is going to sound a lot like what we talk about this week. There's a lot that's indistinguishable, because when it talks about the 10 step, it says, later on, and Steve saved it, every day I got to go through the day with this vision of God's will in our activities. How can I best serve thee? Thy will, not mine, be done. Next week, we're going to say the same thing, that we constantly go through the day reminding ourselves, so this way, so what is it we talking about? This way of living, this way of living. So make amends. And usually after discussing, it'll get clear. You know what? You need to go back and do something. You need to go back and fix that. You need to go back and clean that up. You need to go back and, and so then what is it that I do after that? Well, it's our go-to position. It's our fallback position. We've heard this over and over and over. And point 5, turn my attention to somebody I would help. We resolutely turn our attention. That's the go-to. When Steve and I, when we get to the 12th step in a couple of weeks, we'll talk about why that's the go-to. But remember when we went sex conduct inventory and we said when sex is particularly troublesome, we turn our attention to somebody we could help. That's been our go-to for the longest, way, 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 way back. At the beginning of this process, we said if the alcoholic fails to enlarge and perfect his spiritual life through self-sacrifice, working with others. That idea of working with others, it's bedrock. It's ground zero for us. It's what it is that we do. So in that 10th step, and it's interesting the way it plays out for me. Generally speaking, when I'm watching, my watcher is attuned for selfishness, and it's attuned for resentment. It's attuned for dishonor. If I had to rank them in order, probably it's a two. I'm keenly aware of when resentments, because that's when you bumping heads with somebody. You really get aware with that, of that. Damn, I shouldn't have said that. Damn, I'm sideways with the boss. Damn, I shouldn't have talked to Ali like that. Damn, I shouldn't have cut my sponsee off like that. I should have been more. Damn, oh man. So I'm attuned to resentment. On the hierarchy for me, the next one I'm attuned to is selfishness. I'm attuned to selfishness, and I know, okay, dude, you did that. That's you just being you, and only you thinking about yourself. You ain't thinking about them. You don't see their point of view. You ain't trying to entertain their point of view. You got that judgmental place that you can go, that spiritual arrogant place, seat that you can reside in. That's selfishness. In the third tier for me is dishonesty, and I'm not saying the third tier of where I said of my awareness of what I'm attuned to. And the fourth tier, curiously, is fear when I'm in my 10th step. And that's interesting to me because I had one of those today, and I didn't catch it in the moment. This is why we do 10 and 11. So now we're somewhere in this gray zone between 10 and 11. I'm glad you guys have me and Steve doing this, because I don't have to wait till tonight, and then, so I'm not going to talk about 11th step, which is what we'll do next week. So I'm going to talk about it as if I did a 10th step. I'm doing it right now. Fear. I'm not, my antenna's not up for fear as much, you guys. And the reason why, this has become a practice over all these years is to get more tuned and really to get the honesty to call it what it is. A lot of times I'll miss it in the 10th step. I'll miss that I owe somebody something because no, I'm not calling it what it is. until it blows up. Call it what it is. And today, I'm in something. I was talking about something similar last week, and something's going really sideways. In my business thing, it's going, and I'm really scared. Not scared like, ooh, I got cancer. Not scared like that. Scared that I'm not going to get something I want. Scared that this is not going to come off of me. Scared that it's going to affect some other people because, of course, I represent people. And so uh, this person on the other side called me, and I didn't take the call. And I had something similar to that, I think, last week when we showed up. I didn't take the call. And uh, and I didn't respond to an email, and I was paralyzed. Not in the sense of uh, paralysis, I know, because I've been a guy who's been paralyzed by fear before. I've been a guy who's been paralyzed by fear. But I've been paralyzed today in the sense of not promptly handling my business. I've been I almost would rather just lay down and act like this ain't going on. Let somebody else do it. And that is an interesting place for me in the 10th step, because I seldom look at that one in my 10th step. But the thing about that is now it's going to bleed into owing and amends for not properly getting back. We're in a business transaction together. I owe you that professional courtesy. I owe you that professional respect. I owe you that respect as a person outside of the professional part. You making contact with me and I'm not returning the call, and so what did that 10 step look like for me? It looked like a guy at 34 years old who was not doing a 10 step and was going to let it bleed into an 11 step. I didn't watch for the fear. I didn't ask God to remove the fear. I didn't discuss it with anybody. I have not thought about making amends. And, you know, thank God I'm forced into turning my attention to somebody I could work with. That's, so you know what? That's why if you want to fail safe in your recovery, make sure you stay, two things. Make sure you stay sponsoring when you get in the position to sponsor, and make sure you keep commitments, because it'll do for you what you can't do for yourself. When you sometimes are not going to be in the term position, you have to, because it's time to go to the meeting, Ali. It's time to sit up for the meeting, or it's time to answer the sponsee's call, or it's time, and God will do for a guy like me. That is, uh, I think, uh, part of the brilliance of our program. There are some built-in uh, guardrails for me that I don't know that that's what they're there for. I don't know that's what they're designed for, but they catch me, and I only can go so far left. you know um there's another time, so I get caught up. I get caught up. What does this 10 step look like? What's it supposed to look like? Well, it's supposed to look like situations like that. It's supposed to look like a guy that's 67 years old, that's in a profession that he's been in for a while, a guy that goes to work every day, a guy that's a father, or a guy that's the mate, or a guy that's a son, or a guy that's a brother. There are things that he would like to, the way he would like to present. He still falls short. So we have a 10 step. We have a 10 step. And if I and then we have a double lint trap. We have another step when he falls on that tent, because I'm a guy that falters. It says that some of these we balk. I'm never a guy that intentionally. There are none of these steps I intentionally balk at. But in the execution, there are places where I have, you know, whether it's intentionally, unintentionally, or sleep at the wheel. So that's why 10 step, you guys, because stuff like that happens. It'll happen in your house too. It'll happen in the house. Me and Leslie were talking a week or so ago, and I am so petty. Um, um, 10 steps are made for petty people too. but petty people. We had a conversation about the vaccine. The vaccine. I had the vaccine already, so of course I'm an expert on the vaccine. And as he went and was talking to the person giving the shot somewhere else that told her something. Well, what the person told her was not exactly my experience. Um, so I want to superimpose my experience. And so that little discussion turned into hang up the phone, not call, not talk for me. And I'm knowing who I am, right? I am I'm not who you guys see. I'm not who you guys see. I am and I'm not. I am and I'm not. I am a person that sometimes gets up and can't get out of his own way. 10 step. That's why we have it. I am a person who sometimes cannot make his mouth not um, not get in your business. That's why we have a 10 step. I am a person who cannot not have the last word sometimes, even when, and see, the cold thing is we interact with all kind of folk who got to have the last word too. So that's when it talks about you, but let's go back to the third step, you guys. Even when my motives are right, I'm in what? I'm in collision. So we're colliders. So what is it that gets people through the world, a world of colliders? We got to process. We got to process, you guys. And that process for a colliding guy like me. So then what ends up happening is, so what's the end result of doing this? Well, the end result of doing this is I come out with guiding principles. What's my guiding principle in the 10th step? Guiding principle, I'm now trying to grow in understanding and effectiveness. A lot of you guys have been rolling with us on Wednesdays, and a lot of you go to big book workshops, and you go to a lot of workshops, and you see these names of people, and you take copious notes. And I think that my deal is to grow in knowledge and information. Nothing could be further from the truth. Remember what I said a couple of weeks ago. There's a big difference between seeking and learning, growing in understanding and effectiveness. It don't mean being the smartest guy in the room. It don't mean having the loudest mouth in the room. It don't mean having the last word in the room. In fact, shutting up sometimes is allows me to be the most effective. Shut up. Listen. That's what understanding is. Growing and understanding. Quit browbeating your sponsees. I'm going to get on this soapbox for a minute, then I'm going to toss it back to Steve. Stop it. Stop it. My function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. Sometimes I say, do I want to be right or do I want to be free? Other times I say, do I want to be right or do I want to be effective? And the 10th step, it's a powerful, it's my favorite promises. The last piece that I'm going to say, and then I'm going to kick it back to Steve. It reminds us in the 10th step of what it is that we suffer from on a cellular level, on a physical level. It says, for by now, because we have not been cured alcohol. What does that mean? It means we could have 12, 24, 36 steps. We don't have a single step that deals with the physical allergy. We do not have a single step that deals with the physical allergy. So when it says what we really have is a daily reprieve, we have not been cured of alcoholism, what it means, new friends, there is you still a pickle. We don't have a cure to return the cucumber. You still a pickle. So all the stuff we talk about, for all the things we do, you're still a pickle, Ralph White. And being a pickle, it behooves you to continue on this path that you've been on so that as a pickle, you still don't have to be pickle. As a pickle, that's can you believe it, what we've been given? you know, what we've been given. And, but the thing about that is, Steve and I have not touched on the one negative aspect of this, because there is, because this is a process that's designed to deflate my ego. I can use this process to inflate my ego. And when I use this process to inflate my ego, I can do something that's really dangerous. It's called resting on my laurels. And the book has some dangerous signs. And Steve, in your experience, I know for me, I don't have an experience of coming close, but in your experience, looking back over time, have you been in that danger zone at all? The resting on the laurel zone?
I have rested on my laurels, Ralph, and I've rested on my laurels and not known I was resting. I've rested on my laurels by checking the boxes with activity, but not being, as you said, spiritually engaged in the process. I have spent that time where being a sponsor had turned into a teacher-student relationship, and where I took ownership of this vertical relationship rather than a horizontal one that did not challenge me. And you know, when you stay sober a long time, and some of you guys, there's plenty of people on here sober longer than me, but you, as we stay sober longer, you more and more often find yourself one of the both chronologically older people in the room and sobriety seniority in the room, and you can use that as an excuse not to be challenged. You can hold people at arm's length, and sometimes it's on purpose, and sometimes it is unconscious, or because sometimes I'm spiritually asleep to that. And I know that I can be with some people that aren't going to challenge me on the hard stuff, because I could come, you know what I mean? Because I could come back. I can win that argument. As the book says, I can win the argument but lose the war. And so have I found myself in that? You bet. And frankly, it's the 10th and 11th step self-examination that has exposed it, usually after I blow something up, and usually after talking to a sponsor and this being revealed. So it shows up. It's not always a conscious rebellion that says I'm not going to do anything. Sometimes I fall asleep even in the middle of the work. It's like falling asleep when you're driving, you know, and if you do, pretty soon, boom, you every now and then you wake up, you get right back in the middle of the road, and sometimes you go way off in the ditch. And, you know, I've so loved spending this time with you guys and with Ralph. And Ralph, I loved listening to you talk tonight, and so appreciate sharing what you have shared. And because we said it early on that I mean, Ralph and I are tripping down this road as clumsily as anybody else that's on here. And that's not false humility. And that's also not beating myself up. It's just, that's the path we're on. And, you know, we were forewarned, if that's the word, or at least foretold, all the way back in How It Works, when it said that none of us is going to come anywhere near perfect adherence to these principles. And usually this is another way that I fall into that. Here's when you know you're in trouble. Do you ever find yourself reading your book thinking about who you wish knew this information? You ever think about it, go, boy, I wish my wife would take a look at this passage. Boy, I wish my sponsees, you ever, and whenever I'm looking at that book thinking who else needs to learn this lesson, then I have fallen asleep. Then I have closed my mind and I am not in a position to grow. And when it said in How It Works that we're going to come nowhere near perfect adherence to these principles, what does it say next? Well, then what's the point? What's the point of even screwing around with this thing if I'm not even going to come close? This is the point is we're willing to grow along spiritual lines. Well, that 10th step and the 11th step and even the 12th step are the continuing to grow steps. That 10th step is where I continue to spot, admit, and correct any new mistakes as I go along. And to be able to spot them and admit them, I've got to have enough humility to own them. My sponsor said, Steve, you're not going to quit making mistakes. And Ralph said this, you're not going to quit making mistakes. You're going to start standing in front of them. You're going to quit denying that they happen. You're going to own it. And over time, we begin to own it a little sooner. Because why? Only because that works better for me. My sponsor, Don, he says, if you want, if you want to feel better promptly, you admit it promptly. If you want to feel better eventually, admit it eventually. Just choose whichever one you want. And I want prompt relief, right? And, we talked about so many other things. This is where, and Ralph talked about that, being careful not to rest on our laurels, that every day is a day when I must carry the vision of God's will into all my activities. Well, what does that mean for me? How often are we talking about our vision? How often are we talking about Chamberlain's new pair of glasses? How often are we talking about seeing the world differently? Well, this part of the 10th step is where it says that some of us, when it talks about I will have begun to develop this vital sixth sense, and it also says, and a God consciousness. And if I'm now looking at the world through a God consciousness rather than a self-consciousness, then I'm seeing the vision of God's will rather than my will. And I will tell you, my glasses come on and off all day long. Trust me. And I think most people's do. But a vision of God's will into all my activities. That's why next week, I can't help but jump ahead because these things are so intertwined. Next week, we will say that we remind ourselves many times each day, thy will, not mine, be done. That's how I put the glasses back on. Oh, yeah, I've been trying to get my will. Now let me look at it. And the way that I look at it is when I ask God next week, but we're going to ask him tonight, but next week I'm going to ask God to divorce my thinking from self-pity, from dishonest, from self-seeking motives. What if I wasn't blinded? What if my vision wasn't clouded by self? And I was looking at a vision of God's will for all my activities. Then I got to say, we get over here and it's at the 10th step in the 12 and 12, especially where the 12 and 12 begins to talk about the experience and the challenges and who I am with this new sixth sense and in this new fourth dimension in the foyer of the world of the spirit. And I'm confronted with a couple of things that were baffling for a while. This is where the spiritual axiom is, right? The spiritual axiom says that whenever I am disturbed, no matter the cause, there's something wrong with me. Well, that's got to be something wrong with that. Let me tell you the cause. How often I've spent time with my sponsor explaining the cause to him. Listen more closely. Let me be more effective. And because I misunderstood what was being said, it sounded like to me you're telling me that this is my fault, that everything must be my fault. And Lord knows I was carrying, and that's not what I believe is being said, right? I think what it's being said is that whenever I'm disturbed, there's something wrong with me. And what's wrong with me is I'm disturbed. And the solution is to be undisturbed. That's what our friend Sandy talked about. That's what Chamberlain talked about. That's what all the spiritual teachers talk about, because they tell me over and over, because trust me, I need to hear it again, that my problems are internal, not external. That means the solution is internal, not external. And I keep thinking the only way I'm going to be okay is when some external circumstance is resolved to my satisfaction. But that is not the case. In the book, the 12 and 12 even says, what about justifiable anger? I know that penny ante crap, but what about that justifiable anger? Let me lay this on you. And it doesn't say that there isn't justifiable anger. I think it says we should leave justifiable anger to those better equipped to handle it. That's, which, by the way, is just the same thing you tell me about alcohol. Steve, you can have a drink if you want, but we've seen you drink, and we think you should probably leave it to those better equipped to handle it. Steve, you can be angry if you want. It's the dubious luxury of normal men. You haven't proven to be normal. You have a right to be angry, but it doesn't seem to serve you very well. It is spiritual poison to me. So like Ralph said, do I want to be right? Do I want to continue to litigate the transgression, or I don't want some freedom from it? Do I want to be okay? And then here's one that really threw me off. We got 4 minutes left. It began to talk about, and we hear it referenced in our meetings all the time, that restraint of tongue and pen, right? It says that self-restraint must take a top priority. Yet for a long time, I'm looking at that and thinking, hell, if I could restrain myself, then I would do it. I don't seem to be able, and it seemed to be saying that Steve, restrain yourself, dude. Steve, pull back. But I don't know if this is what Bill meant. That would be presumptuous, but I know how I now apply that self must be restrained. Self must be restrained, and I can't restrain self, so I'm inviting God again. I'm asking God to help me. And again, next week, we will do that, right? We will ask God for his will for me and the power to carry it out. I'm asking for power. I'm constantly asking for power I don't have. And really, that's not true. Ralph stated it for me. I should be constantly asking for power. I will go days and not ask for the power and not realize I hadn't asked for it. And our friend Bob, Ralph's sponsor and my dear friend, Bob would say that without God, the 12 steps are just a management tool. They're still pretty good. It's a pretty good group of things to maybe serve as guidelines, but when I leave God out of it, I'm not very effective in executing what I'm being asked to do. So this 10th step is again where I'm finally arriving at a place, and it says that I will begin to see that perhaps all people are somewhat spiritually sick. We looked at that in the 4th step inventory, right? In the sick man's prayer, but we're arriving at the 10th step with that being a realization. Now I'm beginning to say, oh yeah, you know what? Not only am I a screw up, so are you guys. And not only am I a great guy, so are you guys. I am capable of all these things. We are equally human and equally fallible and equally perfectly imperfect. And it allows me to give a little more grace when I can own my mistakes. And it talks about trying to avoid even constructive criticism. Have you ever done some constructive criticism of somebody who wasn't present? I have often tried to help you understand other people better. And never have I done that without my underlying motive, consciously or unconsciously, be about trying to make me feel better about me or me think you know, because I know you said it. Don't pretend you haven't when you've said about, you know, that Ralph. I'm gonna tell you, Ralph White, man, Ralph's a great guy, you know. But then that one thing, he just got that one thing, and he doesn't get it, and you know, but I love him. I love him, man. He's a great guy. If it wasn't for that thing, and boy, I've dropped that dime on people so many times, and I'm so disheartened when it happens. And but that's what we do. And then it says here's some of the principles that are laid out here, and then it's back to y'all at 9:05. It will not turn 9:06 with me still talking. But it says that we will find that kindness, courtesy, justice, and love become the keynotes by which I may come into harmony with almost anyone. And if it's almost anyone, that means it's almost everyone. So if I begin now to use those as the keynotes that I want to go into the day, then the 10th step will have prepared me and have me in a pretty good spot. But every day is a day that I've got to hit the reset button and make sure I'm good. Thank you guys so much for listening to us tonight.
Matthew, come on up, please. Good evening, everybody. My name is Matthew Hydock. I'm a recovered alcoholic of Buffalo. I just had a question about understanding and effectiveness. I always taught my folks, and I'm just wondering what your thought is on this. It says we grow, our next function is to grow in understanding and effectiveness. And I always pictured that as understanding of what God's will is in our life and effectiveness in carrying that out. And I'd just like to hear maybe one of your thoughts about that statement.
Go ahead, Ralph.
Well, I take that statement as understanding on a case-by-case basis, Matthew. You know, that's a lofty ambition whenever I say understanding what God's will is in somebody's life. I believe God's will is whatever's going on. That's me. And so seeking it, but that depends on, I mean, that's situational. You know, when we talk practically, as opposed to we just talking spiritually, okay. When we talk practically, when it says growing understanding and effectiveness, I get the opportunity to talk with a lot of people. And what has happened for me over the years is I've learned to listen more than I've learned to talk. And I've learned to not impose whatever I think my value is on the situation on theirs. And I've learned the art of listening, I think, is paramount to understanding. Effectiveness for me is, and my watchword is, do I want to be right or do I want to be effective? That's case by case too. Sometimes it's shutting up. Sometimes it's encouraging. As a sponsor, I'm going to give a long answer. As a sponsor, I'm a little different. I sponsor, well, I don't know. I'm different than some people. I might be the same as some people. I sponsor inside of my personality. And for me to be effective is not only am I sponsoring in this process, sometimes I'm a foot in the ass kind of person, but other times I'm a cheerleader. I'm a big cheerleader. And so it depends on, you know, that's a long answer. So they're case by case. And I know them when I see them. I think that's what comes in the 11th step when it talks about this intuitive thought. So I don't have you know what I'm saying? Even when you said that 2-sentence kind of deal, what it means, that's expanded for me. And I know it when I see it. Steve?
I just think I think what you said, Matthew, fits perfectly. I have thought of it. I think that I arrive at the 10th step, and as I continue to be active in that I have more compassion and empathy and understanding of other people as I grow in understanding and compassion with and for myself. When I see my own frailty, it gives me, I become less harsh. Earlier, before I have done that work, I need you to be a screw up because I already think I'm a screw up. And so my view of people is to try to look at you and find out what's wrong that I can point out or what'll make me feel better. And over time, that begins to be a little bit of a shift. And I think I'm more effective when I quit being in competition with you.
Thank you, Matthew, for your question. Devon, hi, Devon. Come on up, please.
Hey everybody, I'm Navon and I'm an addict. And thank you both, Steve and Ralph. This is my first time tuning in to the series and this thing about Step 10. Thank you so much. I have a comment for Ralph. That's my sponsor. He's been sponsoring me about 13 years. I'm 23 years sober. And I oftentimes wonder, why do I stay with Ralph? There's so many great speakers. I haven't had a woman sponsors, blah, blah, blah. And hearing him tonight, I'm like, that's why. Because that he talked about that's fueled with that fear, no wonder he can direct me in those areas because I suffer from the same things. And he's such a great instrument in pointing me back to taking a look at myself when these things crop up. And it's just a wonderful thing. I'm glad that I listened to you guys because what I'm hearing is that I can't be too smart for this program. I can't be too spiritual for this program. I can't be too old for this program, no matter how long I've been around, because of my human imperfections. I'm going to need this deal, not to keep me from drinking and using. I'm one who think it's always about the drink, even though I got time away. And I think it ain't about the drink. It's always about the drink and the hit behind this shit stuff that I go through. But because I want to live a better life and I want to be better, so I use these tools because I want to begin, Steve said that a lot, continue to be the change that I want to see. And when I come clean and I'm transparent, I got somebody like Ralph who, for me, he's a cheerleader. He's not the foot in the ass for me. And I think that's because he know how to be for me in my life. I don't know. But anyway, I thank you both. I appreciate this talk. Thanks.
Thank you, Nevon. Any comments on that?
Thank you.
All right.
No.
She had me at wondering why she stayed with Ralph. I get the same question.
Andrea, come on up, please.
Hey family, Andrea, alcoholic from Annapolis, Maryland. Thank you so much. I am geeked out on this series of talks. I'm sorry I missed it. I'm sorry I missed when you guys started. I picked it up last week. So you mentioned the 10th step promises. Where do they start and end?
And we have ceased fighting anything or anyone. The bottom of 84,
Gotcha.
even alcohol.
Mm-hmm. And where, that's it? That's it?
For by this time, sanity will have returned. We will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. Okay. We react sanely and normally, and we will find that this has happened automatically. We will see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That is the miracle of it. We are not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. We feel as though we have been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We have not even sworn off. Instead, the problem has been removed. It does not exist for us. We are neither cocky, nor are we afraid. That is our experience. That is how we react, so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. Thank you for the question. For anybody who's interested, that's at the bottom of 84, the top of 85, that paragraph.
Thank you, Andrea. Doc, come on up, please.
My name's Doug Rowell. I'm a grateful alcoholic. And yeah, I have always thought of step 10 because it starts with inventory and it ends with admitted. So I've always thought of it as step 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on a continuing basis. However, there's an AA person that I'm married to who believes that step 10 is steps 1 through 9. Now, this may be like how many angels can dance on the head of a pin, but how do you guys feel about that? Is it more like 4 through 9 or more like 1 through 9?
Doug, I am always going to side with your wife on whenever there's a question between the two of you. I'm going with Carla, but because, well, you know, I honestly have not wrestled with it at that level, but I will tell you that I think obviously my ability to work steps 4 through 9 are contingent upon my embracing of steps 1 through 3. So I don't think any of this, I don't think there's any space between these steps. I think that they're all connected. So the unmanageability aspect of the first step, I believe, is what I'm carrying into each of these other steps as well. Certainly when I'm doing that self-examination, I think that is part of the unmanageable life. So I don't think there's a wrong answer there. And like I said, in terms of making a mistake, boy, those are way up in the quality of mistakes that I've made in my life, wrestling between starting at 1 and starting at 4. So, but I won't sleep a wink tonight trying to figure it out.
Mm.
Ralph?
I always take Carla's side. There's an interesting hint in there. There's an interesting hint in there too, Doug. In the 10th step, it says, for by now sanity is returned. In the second step, it talks about being restored to sanity. In the 10th step, it says we are not cured of alcoholism. And I believe that refers to the physical aspect, which is the first step. And of course, I think everything we do rests on our third step, freedom from bondage of self. And I think that still has to do with it. So I just decided to make a little argument for your wife too. My favorite, but
We like you, Bess, but we're afraid of Carly.
Wait, I don't have a question. I thought that was really started that with question where Carla says. I'm with Carla.
there's Ellen, Ali, there's another hand.
Beautiful. Ellen, come on up, please.
Hi, my name's Ellen. I'm an alcoholic. Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate this. I'm sitting here and I'm really questioning some ideas I've had. I've heard people say that 10, 11, and 12 are like maintenance steps. So you don't go back through 1 through 9. And then hearing y'all's take on it, it seems kind of clear that that's true because I no longer have to, 1 and 2 are statements of fact for me that I have to believe and know, and then I make the decision, and that's all day, every day. So then it is like, so I live in 10, 11, and 12 because I kind of always looked at it like I live in 6 and 7, kind of constantly going, okay, take these things away from me, God. Like I need help as I go off and see things throughout the day. So I'm just curious, do you, when you work with others, you study 1 through 9, but then 10 through 12 is like the all day, every day, the rest of your life? Am I making sense? I'm sorry.
You are making sense, and that is those are 2 points of view that you hear pretty regularly, and I don't think anybody's wrong. That's another one of the things where my sponsor is absolutely a guy that views 10, 11, and 12 and refers to them as the maintenance steps. And he's a guy that will tell you, I hate to speak for him here, but I think he would tell you that he did a 4th step and he does not do multiple 4 steps, yet he does inventory. Right. So I just don't get what Ralph and I've said it a number of times during the last few weeks. I am much more personally concerned with the action I'm taking than the number I put in front of it, which becomes the debatable aspect of things. And if I am fully engaged, it is just, and so I don't think that I can do 10, 11, and 12 without incorporating all of the previous spiritual principles that are embedded in the steps.
And I'm with Steve earlier, and I think it's phases of development. And earlier, I was really concerned with how you labeled and how you compartmentalize. I don't compartmentalize now. They're integrated, and it's a lifestyle. And I know Steve's sponsor, he's very strong on calling those, maintenance steps. And there's a part we read where it talks about the maintenance of our spiritual condition. But there's another part we read that talks about we had to continue to grow. So those are the buzzwords that people latch on to. I don't care about the words. I'm not a guy, when you said, do you have your sponsees and I'm more concerned with incorporating what it is we do in our life. And like Steve said, I don't really care about the numbers. Are you doing 1 through 9, or are you doing, are you cleaning up your mess? Are you asking God all day to direct your actions and your thinking? Are you making amends to people that you hurt? You number them however you want to number them. Are you discussing with somebody? Are you staying accountable? Are you working with some other people? That's the foundational stuff we have. The rest, like I said, and I like it, Ellen. I've been there. I like the learning and the analyzing and that aspect. I think you get old and tired though, and so now I'm more in the living.
Thank you for the question. Raphael, come on up, please.
Hi, family. My name is Raphael, and I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic and drug addict. Thank you guys so much for your share, for your honesty, for your love. It's been what an experience for me. You know, it's helped me grow so much and helped me understand myself and the program a little more. I know there's so much to learn, but listening to you guys, it's almost like I don't know. I get to sense a different aspect of the program and the maturity of it. But like Ralph was saying, it's not for special people. It's for all of us. When he was sharing about that last week, he's saying we can all be part of this. This is something that we own and we learn and we do and our mistakes and everything and going through these steps and especially this one where we can refresh and start anew. And it's been so encouraging and so much like a gift, you know? And sometimes I try to share this with other people because I'm getting so much out of it and other people don't get the excitement that I do. But I'm so excited to be here and to be part of this. Like, I feel like I know you guys, you're my homies now, you know, Ali, everybody here, Therese, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. And so I just feel like it's a gift that God has given me to have you in my life, to have you in my network, and to just to know people like you that could be so honest and share and say, yeah, you know, we have faults too. Because like that, you know, it's almost like this is all attainable to me because I'm human. And if I just continue to stay on this process, you know, I get to feel that joy and that love that you guys bring through, you know, because you bring through so much passion for the program and living life successfully, living life happy, joyous and free, living in that fourth dimension, you know, and I'm not always there. I see peaks of it and everything, but I'm so happy that I get to experience it with you guys and I get to feel that joy and that happiness, that love that the program gives me, you know, God, that he loves us just the way I am and that, you know, every day I can change and I can be different and you know, these things come up and yeah, I can make mistakes. And when someone says something, I can go right away and you know, work it out and not fester in the resentment and fear and all that stuff again. I don't have to do all that again, you know? So, you know, it's almost like you're my cheerleaders, you know, I'm so happy to be here and I thank God for you guys. I pray for you guys and, you know, and I hope that other people get an opportunity to enjoy this wonderful experience of sharing these steps and going there with you guys. Thank you and God bless.
Raphael, I think that Ralph and I have helped so many people by being so extraordinarily average that we give hope to the masses.
Thank you, Raphael. We have a few short minutes, so please questions. Muke, come on up, please. Or Muke, I'm sorry for the mispronunciation if I did.
Yes, it's Muke. Thank you.
Muke.
Yes, thank you very much. I always had a problem with the spiritual axiom. And the way it was explained tonight, you know, for the first time, I'm really fully satisfied with the explanation. I am originally from the Congo, and I went there in the eastern part of the Congo, and I saw small children going into the mine to extract coltan. Coltan is what they use for cell phones. The country has 84% of the world deposit of coltan. So if you have a cell phone right now, you have some of the Congo in your house right now. So I was highly disturbed. I said, wait a second. Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob are telling me that to leave my humanity out and not to be disturbed by seeing all these children going into the mines to extract this, you know, mineral that is highly radioactive. So I was really disturbed. And tonight, when I heard Steve say, no, okay, you are disturbed. The solution is internal. Because the disturbance being internal, the solution is internal. So you don't look for an outside solution. And all of a sudden, I start thinking, I say, wait a second. Since the disturbance is internal, the solution has to come also from the inside. So what do I do to mitigate this problem? And I'm a satisfied customer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Muke. The shares have been fantastic tonight. Susan, come on up, please.
Everybody, I'm Susan. I'm an alcoholic. So good to see you all. Thank you, Ali and Odie, for hosting, and Steve and Ralph, thank you so much. I can't believe I just found out about this. I missed all those weeks. There have been so many great Zoom workshops that people I would never get to hear all the time. So I'm glad I found it tonight. I loved what you said about the guardrails, you know, because like I'll get in bed at night and I'll be like, I'm so tired. I don't want to do my inventory. You know, I have to start my morning with asking God to take my hand and put it in his, because I'm not like other people. I have to constantly ask for help throughout the day, to constantly shut up. And I really have to work on, you know, I have a lot of fear and stuff in my life because of the death of my father and what's happening in my family. And if I don't do everything, I'll slip back into unrest. I won't have peace. You know, my whole journey since I came in here was peace. I have to have all my commitments. I have to have time for myself. But, you know, I say, why am I being the section coordinator after being the mailing chair and the newsletter chair? Like, I'm over this already. And then I'm like, stop, you know, like, this is exactly what I need. And those are the guardrails for me, like you were talking about. I don't have emotional sobriety if I don't do all the things you guys talk about. And sometimes I don't, you know, but I catch it now. And I usually catch it right away. Sometimes I don't, but it really, the talk was awesome. Really good to see you both and hear you. Thank you.
Thanks, Susan. Good to see you.